just always stay in your intention. Stay with your intentions. If your intentions are to be a great dad and be there for your child or whatever else, it's as bumpy as the road may be at times, stick with it. That's all I can really say. It's hard. There's no advice for dealing with your emotions in regards to wanting to be a good dad. There isn't no golden words that make everything feel better.
Welcome to another episode of Dads Divulge. Today we have a very special guest with us today. Grime artist, entrepreneur, host of the award-winning podcast Durrty Debates, and father of one, Mr. Durrty Skanx. How's it going, bro?
Good evening. I think that's probably the best intro I've ever got, to be honest with you.
Come on, my guy. You know you deserve it.
No, I appreciate that. I really like that one. I appreciate it. I've been well, man. Thank you again for having me, man. Appreciate it. Very
appreciate you coming on,
man. How have
man.
you guys been?
All good, man.
Yeah, been
good. Cannot complain. Cannot complain at all. Stu, how's it going, bro?
Yeah, all good. Everything's going well. We're gonna touch today on a good topic. So today we're gonna touch on co-parenting. And a bit about co-parenting, right? So it's a term which is now, I feel, being used a lot more often. We may have known it in different guises. We might have known it as someone being a baby father, someone being a baby mother. What we're talking about, though, is actually the role of co-parenting. A child has two parents, right? So we're going to talk about what that role is like. It's something that has been in many families have been set up this way for a long time. And I think we've seen an increase in people trying to understand the dynamic, either for their own purposes, because they want their situation to improve, or because it's just, they may be approaching this situation and not sure, what it's going to entail. So yeah, we're going to just have a conversation on that, advice on how to improve situations, even just a bit of diving into your own situation. So if we start from at the beginning, how, your child, who's who looks like a big man now, but, a big problem. How old is he? And just start from the beginning,
Well, yeah, he's 13 now. 13 going on 33. It feels like it makes me feel old every single day. But the beginning was very difficult. Again, me being a young dad, to be honest with you, before she's even born, the journey kind of starts before the baby's even born. And you find out she's pregnant, and you have to start making these steps and building the foundation towards having this baby. So for me, I was 19 at the time when it happened. So my headspace was very all over the place, because at the time, personally, I didn't feel like I was ready to be a dad yet.
Okay.
There was nobody who kind of taught me or showed me this is what's going to happen when you're going to become a dad. Blah, blah, blah. So I just felt like it was happening way too soon for me. But go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so if you touched on something there, so were you in a relationship with this person, or was this someone that you...
Yeah, we was in a relationship together. We was together for probably about 2.5 years beforehand. But again, if you're looking at the age, like I said, when she was pregnant, she was 19. And when I was 19, being together for 2.5 years before that, she had felt pregnant twice before that, bro. Bear in mind, she's a year younger than me. So we're talking about her being pregnant twice, having a miscarriage once, us making a decision to have an abortion once, whichever else it is. By the third time round, she's 18 years old. I'm like, bro, I can't really... Well, it's not even just me, but we kind of came together and said, we can't play with her body like this, if you know what I mean. And we've been irresponsible to an extent, and kind of have to stand up and face what's in front of us, if you know what I mean. Even still, in hearing all of this, I still didn't feel like I was ready to be a dad, if you know what I mean. But again, I had to start making the steps. Even in that situation, we ended up breaking up during which was obviously crazy for her, heavy for her, because a lot of the things that I'm understanding it now as a grown man, some of the things that she wanted to experience with her partner, she didn't have, which probably made the entire pregnancy harder for her. Whereas I had my own stresses at the time, worrying about finances, and just the headache of what was going on was a lot for me. which made me feel like even more so I wasn't ready to be a father. So it became extremely strenuous, if you know what I mean. Until, if I'm being brutally honest, it wasn't until the day my son was born, I feel like a lot of the pressure that was on myself and was on her kind of shifted. So let's say, for example, if I could put a percentage on it, if the stress was at 200% at the time, the day he was born, it felt like 70% all of a sudden. There was a major shift, if you know what I mean. And it's not to say the job was done or whatever else it is, but my boy's here now and I just feel different about everything.
Yeah, this is something me and Stuart talk about a lot, and it's like, I feel the same. I felt the same way, bro. I felt the same way. I mean, with me, I was with my missus for, I think it was a good 6 years before we had our 5-6 years before we had our first one. But the same pressures were there. The same pressures as I'm not ready to be a dad. I've got to provide for this child. How am I going to provide for this child? And me and Stuart often talk about wanting to have it all sorted out, wanting to have it all in place for the child when they arrive. And as men, we put that massive pressure on ourselves to have everything in place. But you'll find when the baby actually arrives and you hold that child and you look at that child, all of those troubles kind of fall away. And you realize to yourself, to a certain extent, all it is, I'm here for this child, you know. That's all that matters. I might not have it all figured out. I might not know how I'm going to do it, but as long as I'm here, it can work.
Absolutely.
Very, very true.
When you so you said you split like during the pregnancy, right? And I think it is a common thing. I think I've seen it a lot where, you know, some men have split with their partners during pregnancy phase. Can you talk about, not into the detail of, you know, why it happened and so on, but just, I suppose, how you felt after, you know, and because I think there's always two sides to a coin, right? You know, after breaking up at the time.
Do you know what the funny thing was? It was weird because when we were together before the baby, before she was even pregnant, when I say to you, we was together every day, like literally. And I was outside on the road and whatever else it is and doing all sorts of things. And she was right there. It was mandem around. But I know if I needed somebody to do something, it was my girl that was doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like she was like my right hand. So it was crazy to me because I'd grown up with this person, so to speak. Like it was my first proper relationship, if you know what I mean. So breaking away from her at a time when we were having a baby, I felt like I didn't have an outlet, to be honest with you. I just felt very stressed. And it was just weird because the one person that I spoke to about everything, that knew everything or whatever else it is, I felt like at the time was somewhat using the level of vulnerability I had with that person against me, if you know what I mean, and saying things that was really spiteful and hurtful. Other people couldn't say certain things because they didn't have that information or just didn't have the power to get to me like that, which then made me grow a level of resentment. I probably said things, I can't remember some of the things that I probably said at the age of 19 or 20 in those heated arguments or whatever, but I probably said things that she would probably never forget too, or whatever else it is. So for me, just from my side of the coin, I wasn't happy at any point that we was apart, so to speak, but I knew for a very long time that it wasn't going to work like that. As a couple, us as a couple, not as a family, and making sure that our son is well looked after and taken care of, whatever else it is, because she has her morals and her standards, I have mine. But us as a couple, in my head, I kind of writ it off, but tried. You know, like you go through the period of, well, you may not, but some of us go through the period of trying to make it work for the baby. I'm probably sure you've heard that term many a time. Do you know what I mean? So I went through those stages, but somewhat in the back of my mind, kind of always knowing that as a couple, I didn't see her as the same person. Do you know what I mean? But I knew that I had a lifelong attachment to this person now. Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't a nice time at any given point, us being broken up, to be honest with you. Like, I wasn't interested in dating other women and all this kind of malarkey, because again, at that time, being so young, girls of your age group didn't really have babies and such, and any girl that kind of heard that man had baby at the age, they kind of ran the opposite direction, sort of. You know what I mean? That's how my mind was set. So I wasn't interested in none of this kind of stuff anyway. I was just kind of worried about the fact that I didn't want to have the same situation that I had with my dad, if you know what I mean, just me not being around and all this kind of nonsense. I just weren't on that. So, yeah, it was never a nice time. There was never a time that I felt peaceful or whatever. It wasn't the entire pregnancy. It was probably like the last 3 months, 4 months. We didn't really see eye to eye. But again, 3 out of 4 months out of 9 is still a long time.
Still a long time.
Of course,
you know what I mean? And yeah, because even up to the day that she had the baby, we wasn't talking. Like, even up to the day she had the baby, we wasn't talking. Like, her mum called in, she's going into labour at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I've jumped up out of my sleep after seeing like 15 missed calls because I'm doing coma sleep. And I'm seeing, well, she's going into labour, she's at St. Mary's Hospital, so I'm having to dart at 4 o'clock in the morning, do you know what I mean? But even at that time, I remember walking through the door, bro, into the maternity ward, and her face, well, I'll never forget, bro, she had this pink dressing gown that she would never take off, blood. Oh, my God. Pink dressing gown. And when she saw me, it's like she saw her worst enemy. Her nose went up. She kissed her teeth. She done bare stuff. And I thought, yeah, she still hates me still. But it is what it is. And yeah, I was there. I was there in and out. I was there. I was in the room the whole time or whatever. It was me, her mum. And I remember even when my son was born, the first thing she said when she saw him, she went, "You look like your dad, man." I'll never forget it. It's like she was vexed. She was vexed. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, that whole time it wasn't nice, man. Like I said, I was young. I didn't really feel like even my older brothers didn't have children. So I couldn't really turn to my older brothers. I was the first one out of my brothers to have children. Do you know what I'm saying? So I didn't really have the outlet or an uncle I could have spoken to or whatever. So it was tough, man.
So you split up while she was pregnant, right?
Yeah, split up while she was pregnant,
okay. You know what, as well, after that, we ended up again trying, you try and whichever else it is, over a couple of years. We tried back and forth for a couple of years, up until I would say I was about 25, maybe. You know what it is? It's hard. Co-parenting, I think, in general, must be hard. I haven't gone through it, but from the people that I can see from the outside, I can look and say, you know what, they're going through it. Like, especially when there's emotions involved in it. It's, I think, especially when you're young, it takes a lot of maturity to take emotions out of it and say, let's do what's best for the child. I think to some extent, people don't even think like that.
It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible, to be honest with you. The way I felt at 19, I'm only running off of my emotions. I've never been through this before. So for me, it's almost like my heart's telling me later. She's telling me I can't see you. There's no way. I've always said that there's nobody's going to. Do you know what I mean? So all I'm doing is running off my emotions, my pride and my ego, whichever else is no one can ever tell me. And, if I sat down and probably thought about, all right, do you know what? Pacing myself and whatever, I probably wouldn't have been as stressed out. But at 19 years old, who's teaching you this?
I think it's important to note that a lot of people have become parents like really young, and it's sometimes you almost held hostage to how you acted at the time when you were young, inexperienced in loads of different ways, So it's interesting. So if you think back now, your first task at co-parenting, what do you think that was, and how did you approach it? So obviously you're there for the birth, obviously, but I'm talking about now, potentially first time looking after the child by yourself or going round to see the child, etc. How did that pan out for you?
Do you know what? In regards to, like I said, once my son was born, we kind of built this pact. It was like a unwritten thing where we just knew that regardless, I'm not arguing with you about coming to see my youth and all of these kind of things or whatever else it is. I'm going to be here every day. I know you need help every single day. Like, you've never been a mum before. You're 18 years old. Her mum has to go to work. She was staying at her mum's at the time before she got her place. So I knew that I had to be there, if you know what I mean. So I would say my alarm would go for like 6 o'clock in the morning. These times I was working, to be honest with you, in Uxbridge. So Uxbridge was like near Heathrow, and she was in West London, sort of by Paddington. So So as much as it doesn't sound like a million miles away, I went driving at the time. So I was working quite far. So it was either straight after work, I would go straight to the house and see her. I'd potentially stay there or have to go home because my mum wasn't too keen on me staying in the house or whatever because of the arguments and stuff that was going on. So it was difficult. But again, in regards to like my first thoughts of co-parenting and me taking care of him, do you know what the first thing was, to be honest with you? The hardest part was in the beginning, if I'm thinking about co-parenting, us not being together and being in her mum's house at the time, was the fact that I felt like her mum was so hands-on. It's almost like I didn't get a chance to learn by myself, and it would then cause the problem.
Yeah.
That was one of my first memories of trying to be a dad and felt like I wasn't allowed to be a dad or whatever else it is. So that was one of my first issues, which then caused more issues in regards to how I'm going to co-parent, because now that I'm a dad and I want to do certain things, and I don't feel like gladly, when I look at it, granted, I'm a child to this woman. I'm talking about her mum, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But all due respect, you ain't mine. This is my child, and I need the room to do what I'm doing, you know what I mean, in order to learn whichever else. Yes, you're here, guide me. But there's almost like there was no room for me to do anything, again, which then made me probably lose a level of respect for her. And yeah.
I was going to say, in hindsight, do you now think a lot of other co-parents and men have a similar view to like in-laws and mothers, etc.
I would 100%. I would say in-laws definitely play a major part sometimes, a lot of the time in regards to sour co-parenting situations, to be honest with you. Because again, naturally, let's say for example, a woman has a baby and it seems like the dad is doing shit based on how their relationship is going. Her mother or auntie, cousins, sisters, friends, or whatever else it is, are actually going to shield and protect her and side with her based on the information she's giving them, based on how she feels, or whichever else it is, rightly so. Same on the other side of the fence, with the men are going to tell the man them or their parents or whatever else it is, oh, she's a you, that shit, making me see the you, and boom, 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 boom. They're going to side with that side. And now it's just when the in-laws and the other family members are now crossing with these people and it's becoming disrespectful, it's when it becomes one big massive issue. Do you know what I mean? In-laws. And I felt like, with the in-laws and family members and whatever else it is, that's when it becomes very chaotic. And it tends to happen when it's two young people in the situation, when it's two adults, if you know what I mean. They kind of manage to hash it out and sort it out accordingly. When it's two young people who don't really know what they're doing and don't really know how to navigate through these situations, they tend to lean on their parents or tend to lean on their older brother or cousin or whatever else it is in these situations when shit's going sour. And I did so, and so did she. And I'm guessing a lot of other people do too, hence the bomb in regards to young co-parenting situations. Do you know what I mean?
And this is the thing, like a lot of people aren't lucky enough to have parents that can give them, even though they're young, kind of give them a proper adult point of view. Sometimes even without bringing in their own emotions and how even the past relationship that they may have had in the past and their feelings towards maybe men in general. Do you see what I'm saying? Some of them bring in those things, those past traumas that they've been through themselves and kind of put it onto their sons or their daughters. And then that's projected through into the relationship. So before you've even started anything, you haven't got a chance, because you may have this woman or this father or whoever in the child's ear, like, don't let him see the child sometimes, or, do things this way, or deal with him, or you don't need him. Me and you can do it together.
Don't mind what he's saying.
Yeah, don't mind what he's saying. Well, really, truly, you shouldn't be telling someone that, no matter what you've been through.
Exactly.
And it's so strange, right? Because it's going to say it's strange because as parents now, you do want to protect your children, right? So you can almost see how people slip into that behavior of ultimately protecting your child because you know best for your child. So therefore, it's natural. You're going to input. It's natural, but it's true in what you're saying. In that scenario, whether you're young or whether you're, slightly older, when you become a parent, that there is a element of growing up. I think you need to do, and I think, sometimes parents, in-laws don't don't allow that. I think it's a fear of maybe, like Ryan said, fear that, certain situations are going to slip into the same scenarios that they were in.
The thing is, sometimes, bro, a lot of the times with these in-law situations as well, it's a lack of information. So let's say, for example, let's hypothetically speak, for example, and say my son's in a relationship with a woman and has a child, and they're having problems or whatever else it is. My son is giving me information based on how he feels and whatever else it is. That's one piece of information. If I've already made a decision on the type of person you are and all of these kind of things or whatever, based on what my son alone is telling me, I'm probably going to be somewhat misinformed somewhere because she feels a certain way about certain 100%. Things, and she has a certain. Do you see what I'm saying to you? And again, I feel you. This is the problem. But again, it's somewhat natural.
It is natural, but this is where adults have to remember they're adults. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, the same way adults can use the power, play thing when it suits them. You have to understand that. Okay, cool. You did this. Okay, but he did this, but what did you do for him to do that? It's even like, like me having 4 children. It's almost sometimes I feel like I'm a detective sometimes. You see what I'm saying? When one child comes through the door, bursts through screaming, detective mode now. What's happened here? I'm saying, okay, no, he hit, no. All right, so, but what happened before that? What led to this situation? And it's the same things that we owe that to our children, to give them kind of an open assessment of what we see going on, not just kind of take their sides because, you're my daughter, I love you, or you're my son, I love you, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. No, I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, and I'm going to tell you when you're in the wrong, I'm going to tell you when I think you're in the right, so that you can make a kind of balanced judgment. But too many times it's like, oh, you're my daughter, yeah, or you're my son, you know what, I'm just going to tell you what you want to hear, I'm going to kind of shield you and not really give you what you need, really.
Exactly, yeah.
So you've touched on earlier days, working this, it's all very fresh, brand new parent. When did you feel like you was in full flow or a better flow?
I would say that I was in a better flow once he got to an age where me and him could communicate, if you see what I'm saying.
Okay.
So from Jump Street, me and my son were inseparable, bro. Like, that was like, it was ridiculous, bro. You've never seen a duo like it. That I know. Yeah, it was crazy, bro. My son didn't want to be anywhere else but next to his dad. No matter he would go mad. So it was, once he got to an age of, let's say 2, 3, it was, for me, I was solidified in my head as, I'm dadding for life. Do you know what I mean? So obviously from Jump Street, I know, I'm going to be a dad, and I want to be a dad, and I want to be here, and I love him, and blah, blah, blah. But once we got to the age of being able to communicate with each other, and he was able to express certain things with me, I was in somewhat of a routine in regards to how we needed to physically be taken care of, what I wanted to do for him emotionally. Once he got a bit older, I kind of tapped into those things a little bit early, if you know what I mean. So I would say from a young age, I felt like I was very tapped into the fatherhood thing and knew the standard I wanted to keep in regards to raising a son, to be honest with you. It didn't come for me later on.
Yeah.
And I'm sure looking back, you could probably say, if I thought about this properly, I would have done this differently. What are some of the things that you say, looking back, you would change? Or some of the things that, you've changed in your own personality to be a better father?
Do you know my biggest thing in regards to what I would have changed and what I have now changed in regards to the entire co-parenting thing is how I probably communicated with his mum at the time. It wasn't, I was never a person who effed and blind or was never abusive towards her physically or whatever else it is verbally when we're cussing each other out. Yeah, cool, whatever. But I was, and I never dissed his mum to him. That's one thing I never did. But some of the things that had happened and went on, to be honest with you, let's say, for example, like I said, when you're 2 heated teenagers or early 20s, very, very early 20s, and you're having these heated arguments and people are saying things out of heartbreak and upset, and do you know what I mean? Broken dreams, because again, women are dreaming of having a child and never splitting from that man and whatever else it is. That's the dream for most women or whatever else it is. And you have to understand that she's going to be extremely emotional. Hormones are going to be all over the place. She's still a very young woman. Do you know what I mean? So for me, I think in regards to how I communicated at the time, I would have changed that. But again, inexperience wouldn't have allowed me to do so.
When you say communication, break that down, because it's quite a broad thing, and we say it a lot. But what does that mean? So someone watching now who may be struggling with co-parenting, who's going through it, who can't seem to get on the same page as their partner, what is communication in your eyes?
All right. So for me, there was a long time where I spent trying to communicate what I thought was amicably, and for whatever reason it turned into arguments. Now you see the shouting, the cussing, the rah-rah-rahing, and then being disrespectful towards each other. Those are some things that you can never take back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, this is all coming from, when I look back at the whole thing, and even at the time knowing it, this was all because we have this crazy love for this child, but we can't seem to find some sort of middle ground, because we're still trying to figure out why us didn't work, and all of this kind of stuff is going on. So for me, it was, I can only be held accountable for my actions, so to speak. And again, looking back at it, it was just me being angry about the fact that I wanted to be this mega. She had a dream and I had a dream in regards to being parents. I didn't want to have a child and break up with the person and whatever else it is and blah, 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 blah. This entire baby mother, baby father thing that everybody talks about was happening to me. Again, so in feeling the way that I felt at the time, I didn't express myself in the best ways at times. Do you know what I mean? A lot of it came from places of anger, and not just with me being verbally abusive, whatever, but my actions, the way I treat you, how I may reply to messages, all of these kind of things. If I had probably cut some of that shit out and probably found somebody who was my mediator. My brother was a mediator for us for a long time. She had a crazy level of respect for my brother. I have a crazy level of respect for my brother, and he just didn't want to see the headaches. So he was that voice. Yeah. So probably doing that at earlier stages or whatever else it is, or taking... But again, you have this thing of not wanting people in your business and all of that. Brother or no brother, you want to kind of handle your business as your own man and whatever else it is and blah, blah, blah. So just me opening my mouth and speaking to people about some of my situations, or like I said, my brother, would have probably diffused a lot of the bullshit that we dealt with.
Right. So we talked about communication and, you know, things that are happening at the time which led you to communicate in a certain way. Also, we factored in age. You know, what advice would you give to those who are still holding things which happened, you know, a while ago, and it's still actually impacting their co-parenting journey? How did you get over the hump? You know, what was the realization that came to you that said, you know what, this bickering's not actually going any place. I need to kind of put this aside, put my emotions to the side, and actually deal with the matter at hand, which is making sure I'm involved in my child's life.
My anger situations and my communication levels led to me being quite sick. I had epilepsy for quite a while, to be honest with you. Epilepsy, stress-related epilepsy for like 9.5 years before my child. I never had one. You know what I mean? I never had a seizure or nothing like that beforehand. So how I was taking on the stress had a major impact on my life. So me personally, for anybody who is taking on stress, unless your child's physical health or mental health is at risk, it doesn't need to be a shout and a scream. That's all I can... I know it's so hard and it sounds so cliche for me to say after saying that I've been through it all. But believe me, being an older person now, the back seat gets you to the journey so much quicker, like through the journey so much quicker and so much more peaceful. Like, you see, when you're trying to lead in the situation, you're at the front of the car, the both of you are trying to drive this car here. It's only going to end up with, no matter where, at some point you could get 10 miles down the road, 100 miles down the road, you're going to crash at some point with both of you trying to hold on to the steering wheel. Yeah. It's not going to work. You know what I mean? So especially when both people are hostile and whatever, allow the person to drive if they feel like they need to drive, or you can actually drive from the back seat and leave the person at the front to believe they're driving it. Be in control of your life. Be in control of you. take accountability for yourself and do what's best for your child, and use as many avenues as you can to have access and influence on your child's life. Do you know what I mean? And it's not always easy. It's never easy, to be honest with you, but just use as many avenues and tools as you can to be a heavy influence in your child's life, regardless of what your situation is with your baby mother or baby father, so to speak. You know what I mean?
You touched on something there that kind of resonated with me when you said, like, kind of work on yourself, be the best person you can yourself. Do you feel like you taking care of yourself has led to you being a better father in general and being a better man all round in regards to having a relationship?
100%. I think realizing that people will be people has allowed me to say, do you know what, be in control of me, because I can't control adults. I can guide my child, even my child.
Yeah,
like, I can't control him. Like, he has a brain, he has his own bodily functions, and he will move how he wants to move. I can only guide people and advise people. The older the person gets, the less control you have over that person. You see what I'm saying? So for me, it played a major part in my world, to be honest with you, being or understanding that I just need to take care of me. Again, it was unfortunate it took for me to have flipping seizures and all of this shit in order for me to understand that I needed to take care of me. But that was like my golden moment to say, do you know what? While I'm stressing out and having seizures or whatever else it is, she might be going to get her nails done. That's what I'm saying to you.
Yeah. Complete contrast to what you're going through at the same time.
She hates me and all this kind of blah, blah, blah. But her life will be her life and mine will be mine. That time that I spent stressing out over her, she was sorting out whatever she was sorting out. Or do you know what I mean? Or vice versa. So that was kind of my moment of waking up and understanding that, do you know what, I needed to take care of me in order to be better for anybody else around. Do you know what I mean? Because if I'm angry and vexed and still I'm not the best for anybody at that time. Do you know what I mean? People get the best of you when you're in your happiest states. I wasn't in my happiest state at the time. So I needed to change altogether, because again, it affects how your day to day. You go to situations or go to work or whatever it may be, pissed off. You're starting your day pissed off, feeling drained with a heavy head and all of this kind of shit because of what went on last night, you and her shouting and screaming, or this morning, or the text that you got on the way to work. And it just sets your entire day off, and it changes how you communicate with absolutely everybody and how people see you and all of these kind of things. Do you know what I mean? So I just wanted to have a hold of my own life again. Yeah,
I think respect definitely gets built or lost depending on how you interact with that person, you know? So I can definitely hear where you're coming from with that. And I suppose with that, how have you found, you know, during those times or when things have been better, the task of making joint decisions? So if I give you a random example, something like picking a school or something like what activities, you know, your son's going to be doing, you know, how, you know, from afar or as a co-parent, how do you make those decisions and how do you compromise? Because I suppose compromising would be different when compromising is sometimes difficult when you're in the same house, right? So I'm thinking now, you know, how do you do it? You know, how does it work for you? And actually, what have you learned along the way in terms of how to better compromise and make joint decisions?
I was somewhat lucky, if I'm being honest, in regards to the fact that in regards to things like picking schools and activities and whichever else it was, we wasn't a million miles away from each other in regards to the kind of road that we wanted to go down in regards to those kind of things. So joint decisions weren't really a problem, so to speak, if you know what I mean. In regards to schools, we sort of somewhat grew up in the area ourselves, so we knew the schools. It wasn't like we was moving into this new area and we had to pick a school in this new end based on what Ofsted has told us. It was us picking and knowing the background of the area that we're in, what schools were okay and whatever else it is, what type of kids, what gangbangers kids goes to that school and whatever. Do you know what I mean? So those decisions we made together, and I was lucky that we didn't have to fight in regards to those things. It was somewhat the same in activities. I think it just became more strenuous when the things were costing crazy money or whatever else it is, and like you're not together anymore, and she signed him up for karate, for example, and your finances ain't great this month, but now she's telling you that you got to send £35 every month or whatever else it is, as much as £35 a lot, £35 on top of the rah that you need to pay for on top of this and that or whatever else it is, is a strain on your brain. Do you know what I mean? So at those times, as much as you may have wanted your child in those activities, when the decisions were made by herself at sometimes, it was just an extra stress because I now have to go and find an extra to feel more comfortable in order to do. Do you know what I mean? But I'm lucky enough to say that I didn't really have a hard time in regards to making decisions because our morals and standards were somewhat the same. For those who don't have that blessing, it's hard. Again, mediation, man. Finding somebody who you both find as level ground.
And what's the best for you? That's the important. What's the best for you?
It's difficult, man. Say it again.
I said, and what's the best for you as well?
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's just one of those things, man. Like, if you know that you're trying to communicate with somebody that you almost feel like you can't stand, do you know what I mean? Because sometimes it gets that way, but that person has a level of respect for that person, and that person has a level of respect for me. I'm going to go and speak to you. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes that's the best bet. You need an outlet.
100%. But, I go on about this and I feel like it's the same with co-parenting. And I can only understand how hard it must be to co-parent with someone, especially someone that you once had feelings for, someone who's probably changed over the years, even got into a different relationship with someone else. And there's so many things that can go on. But I think it has to come to a stage where you kind of, when there's a child involved, you kind of have to treat it like a business transaction. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this person is kind of my colleague. I might not like them anymore, but I have to deal with them. They're not going anywhere. You know what I'm saying? Though some man want to make their missus go somewhere, you know what I'm saying? They're not going anywhere. They're going to be here. And how can I best work with them? And I think the sooner men realize, you know what? I have to find a way to make it work with this woman, I have to take accountability for me having a child with this woman, number one. You know what I'm saying? And it's not the child's fault at all that he's been brought into this situation, but I have to, as I said, just try and make it work. Just try and look at it as, I'm going to work today. I'm going to deal with people I do not like. I do not get on with. I don't want to talk to you, but I have to do it. Yeah, no, you're right. And I think getting additional context about how and why people are in different situations is really key, because in your situation, you were in a relationship together, and then it stopped. There are some people who are co-parenting off the back of not even being in a relationship together. So that dynamic is completely different. The respect isn't... The respect may not even be there, even if they are going to be adults about it. You haven't even got an understanding of who this woman is or who this man is. And now something quite massive is, and life-changing is about to occur. But yet you don't even know what their favorite things are. It's just like the fact that the baby's on the way, and now you have to try and learn who this person is. And I think even when, outside influence, when we touched on parents a little bit and family members, let's call it family. But I think even your outside influence as well. So the friends that which may be co-parenting, their situation does not have to mimic your own, and you have to take everything with a pinch of salt. It may be that their father of the child doesn't communicate very well. You shouldn't now let that be your narrative for how men should be or how baby fathers should be. You should. You can't make it a narrative. And I think that happens a bit too often. I think some people, get scarred through certain experiences and now make it a blanket approach for actually, this is why you should do this because this is what this guy did, or this is what this woman done. I think there's an onus, and I say it to parents as well. I say it to everyone. Like, be careful about how you talk about your experiences. Offer advice, offer your 2 pence, cool. But give as much context as you can and let them know that it's, it's like the disclaimer, isn't it? These thoughts and opinions are my own and not the business and so on. But it's important because I think you can scar people, and you can also
lead people down the wrong path, all because of your experience. Your experience is not everyone else's.
But I think this is us as, especially when you're younger. I remember when I was younger, you talk to the same friend that you've known for years about literally everything. And looking back on it, you probably think that person wasn't qualified to hear all my problems, and I wasn't qualified to hear all their problems. But you see, when you're close friends, especially when you're young, it's like you tell each other what you want to hear. You know what I'm saying? Each other what you want to hear. And it's like, yeah, my missus pissed me off this week. Yeah, me too, man. Like, and it's like almost like you get like a lot of negative messages fed towards you at a younger age if you don't have the right people around you. And it goes back to what Skanx is saying, is seek out those people who may be at a stage where you want to be, who have some wisdom to share with you, who can tell you, you know what, I understand where you're coming from, but have you tried this? What part have you played in the situation? I think that's so important, man.
Do you feel, it's a curveball question now, right? Is there a trait in your son's mother that you feel is lacking in a lot of other women at the moment? And the reason I'm asking that is because I feel like I said, co-parenting is not something which is new. And, when you speak to enough people, you realize that all the situations are very different. Is there something that she does or had done that you feel actually doesn't happen a lot more now, and actually had more women, develop some of these behaviors or develop some of these traits, there would be better co-parenting going on?
In regards to co-parenting, one thing that I can say is that she never, once the young bitter stuff was happening when he was a baby, she didn't really stop me from seeing him too tough. Do you know what I mean? That was one thing. But one thing I can say is that regardless of how much me and her cuss, or we may fall out, or whatever else it is, I know that she understands the importance of who I am, the role I play in his world, and how much I need to be a father to him. Because as much as she may feel like at times when we're beefing, oh, fuck it, she'll just do it all herself, and whatever else it is because we're not together. Women do these things sometimes. Men do these things at times too. But I think regardless of what goes on, understanding the importance of the role that the person who isn't your partner anymore plays, but the father of your child is, or the mother of your child is something that I wish that a lot more of these people who are beefing with their ex-partners who have children together are lacking to, but again, it comes with the experience, bruv. I can say this now at 30 plus years old or whatever else it is. At 20, 21, 22, I just think some old man's chatting shit in my ears, to be honest with you. About, yes,
that's what it was,
my time when I had my big nigga, and I was fighting with my baby mother. And that's what it is.
But that's what it is. I mean, it sounds like all white noise. It's like, what are you talking about, bro? And we think these people can't relate to us.
Yeah.
This is it, fam. And for me, I'm trying my best not to sound like that to my youth, because I'm old now. Like when you look at it, I'm the old man chatting shit now. Do you see what I'm saying to you? But again, I'm just having that understanding between me and her, and the message being the same whether he's at home or when he's with me, being the same.
That's important.
We can't really go wrong, if you know what I mean. So I think, again, regardless of two people not being able to have a relationship together, finding the same message for what you want for your child and implementing that every single day on both ends is what's going to be the key to co-parenting. Do you know what I mean? Forget about
so
you.
Valuable. Yeah, I think that's such a valuable point.
Find the message, man. That one message that you're trying to find for the child, and push it on both ends. Because if you've got two different messages or whatever else it is, they're going to be contradictive energy. Like, it's just going to happen.
When you look at it, I know what the meaning.
Mommy's saying this, daddy's saying that.
Yeah, when you look at it, I know what the meaning of co-parenting in it is. But even if you're living in the same household, you're still co-parenting. You're still, because you still have different ideas. You could be in the same house, and one person's doing this, one person's going over that way, and one person's going completely the opposite way. and undermining what this parent said and what that parent said. So you're still kind of co-parenting to a certain degree when you're in the same household. But I think the point that you made, being on the same page, is probably one of the most important things, whether you're in a relationship or not. Just kind of like me and my missus, we've got 4 children, and it's a hard job to try and raise all of them and give them the attention they need day to day. And we're both different people, completely at opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, trust me. So, but one thing we do agree on is we do have like a similar North Star. So we have like our bigger vision, our bigger pick might be different, but the North Star is in the same direction. You know what I'm saying? So we always meet at some point, even if we may go about things a different way. And I think that's so valuable, man. I think that's so valuable.
100%, man. 100%. And I think the sooner that people understand that the message needs to be the same in order for you to have a successful relationship or an amicable relationship, then it is what it is, isn't it? It's not really a stress anymore.
And these children, bro, they run game, man. When they get to a certain age and they can run game between both of you and say, oh, this parent said that, but I heard this about you and dad told me this, and and I've seen it firsthand. That can create a lot of friction between two people.
100%. 100%. And it gets messy, man. Like I said, and when these things happen and it gets messy like this or whatever else it is, people don't realize they're writing their name in people's trauma books or in their child's trauma books. That's what I call it. Because again, it happens and people don't realize these children are never going to forget these things. If your mum and dad were beefing and shouting and screaming, even if it was just for a short period of time, maybe it'd been 1 year out of your life or whatever else it is, you're definitely going to remember it. If you was 4, 5, 6, 7 or 15, it's something that you'll always remember. And again, unfortunately for me, I'm pretty sure there's some things that my son has heard or probably seen that he will never, ever forget, unfortunately. But again, it's just for me to understand that, again, it's the message, innit? As long as me and the mummy's got the same message, then we're good, man. That's all it can be.
Yeah. You know what I was thinking as well? All of my children have, 3 out of the 4 of my children have been born out of wedlock, yeah? And before, when I was younger, and I heard a lot of people going on about, get married before you have children. Get married. I thought they were just like, oh, whatever. You're judging me. You don't know anything about me kind of thing. I'm not here to hear none of that. But when I actually, at the age I am now, I think about it and I think, those things are in place for a reason, I think. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, in the ideal world, if everyone could get married before they have children, I'm not preaching this because I'm not by no means a person that's taken that route. But if everyone did, then it kind of makes you commit to being serious first before you bring a child into the world. Before you can, although people can get divorced, it's not just as easy as just walking out the door. It kind of puts a level of responsibility on you to say, you know what? You need to be responsible for you two first before you bring anyone else into this world. And I feel as I've been thinking today, if I could say to my son, if he come and ask me what is my advice when he gets to a certain age, I would probably say to him, you know what, son, it might be worth you waiting until you're married to have kids. If it doesn't happen, who am I to say anything? Because I didn't do it. I can only advise you, but it might be worth it.
Yeah, there's a level of commitment. I think that's what it is. It's a level of commitment to one another, and hopefully, what follows that is the ongoing and greater respect for one another, and therefore, it makes sense. The North Star is almost there permanently, or you're both traveling towards it. There has to be a responsibility. Like we said, some people are in relationships beforehand and they split, and some people were never in a relationship. I think we also have to kind of touch on a bit, though, the responsibility. Men can't have the children, right? So there is a responsibility on the women also, that actually you are by default entering into a co-parenting situation. If you choose to have a child with someone that you don't quite know, actually you don't know anything about them, and what might follow may not be the fairy tale ending. And by fairy tale ending, I mean having a responsible co-parent. You may have someone who just walks away, quite frankly, and says, I don't want to be part of this. Or actually, you may end up finding you never actually knew that person properly at all. And I think there needs to be a bit more onus on, look, it takes two to tango. We know that. But in terms of the decision to carry on a child, right, to have a child, to go through the pregnancy, I think there's only so much a man can really do. And actually, I think just if more women in some of these situations understood that you are going to make a co-parent, you're going into this type of life, things may change for the better, and you may end up getting together, or you may end up staying together. Fine, but I think there needs to be a bit more responsibility on it. I just think it's an area that most people don't want to touch on or talk about because it's a bit touchy. But the responsibility, I feel, is on you are going to be making this situation. Do you know who you're going to be dealing with? Do you know if this person's even going to communicate with you properly?
Yeah, and I think it's just unfortunate. Again, in some situations, I think people just make the decision based on the fact that regardless of the kind of person you will be, or some women, again, make the decision, not all, but some, make the decision that regardless of the person you're going to be, if you're going to step up to the plate or not, I've got a job to do. Do you know what I mean? Or this is what I want for me, regardless of, do you know what I mean? There's selfishness in it when you think about it. But again, there's I'm not talking about how the person feels about the man or whatever else it is, but you've automatically made the decision that your child is going to come into this world having to do the broken home thing and whichever else it is and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
but
I think,
so, again, there's the responsibilities for both.
I hear you 100% on that, and I'm all about accountability for me. You know, I would say I'm lucky in a sense that I'm with someone who, let's say everything turned out all right in the end. We were gone through our struggles, you know, but everything's turned out all right. But I see a lot of men and women sometimes complaining about their partners almost as like they didn't pick them, almost as like someone almost blindfolded them and said, "Here you go," like, you know, and all of a sudden you're pregnant. That's how and it's like, do you know what? No matter how young we are when you've had children, no matter how whatever we all have to kind of just take accountability for the situation that we're in. And I feel like no one is gonna pick a father for their child or a mother for their child knowing that they're gonna be a certain type of way. If they knew, if it was written on the tin before you bought it, you wouldn't buy it, would you? But it's like almost like, how did you pick that person though? Did you pick that person? What characteristics did you pick that person off? How did that person turn into having a child with you? And everyone's entitled to what they like and the kind of people they go for. But if you're in a situation where it doesn't turn out right, you have to. The problem doesn't boil down to, oh, there's not enough good men in the world. Oh, there's not enough good women in the world. It boils down to the decision that you made for yourself at the end of the day and who you chose to have the baby with, and that's it. And you know that when you take that accountability, then life is much easier because you're not blaming everyone. You're not feeling like you're hard done by. You're like, all right, cool. I made the decision. Cool, whatever. Yeah, it's up to me. It's my responsibility. When there's 4 kids screaming in my head every day and whatever, and I'm feeling like I want to jump through the window, I'm not blaming. I can't blame anyone but myself. You know what I'm saying? Who told me? Who told me though? It's on me.
That's a you problem.
It's on me. Like me and Stuart will go back and forth and I have my little complaining moments, whatever. You vent, innit? You vent sometimes, but in the grand scheme of things, I have to look at myself and say, boy, that was your decision, bro. Your decision, you to go and have those 4 children. So here, what now? Well, you see, when you're stressed and you're putting your hair out, that's you. I'm saying, obviously, everyone has different problems.
It's true. The funny thing about this is, these men were laughing at me when I had my little one pick-me changing in the car and all of that. Talking about, could have never been me. These men now got 4. I'm still on my one pick-me, you know.
Hey, listen, I swear, till this day, I mean, you put side on me, bro. You put side on me. The man that guy at the bed laughing at me and that. It's all right, bro.
It's true. When my man announced that he was having picnic, bruv, I cried for time. I cried for him laughter for time, and I said, yes, man. All them years that were laughing at me, hearing me cussing on the phone, having to change nappy. I think, man, let me go Tesco quickly and get more nappies and wipes and all of that. Man, they were stressing me out. You see now? I'm better now. I'm going to pick me, you know.
Come up and
it's real, and
Just me.
that's what I'm saying. That, you know, I would never. The thing is, all jokes aside, I would never change it for the world. Like, those 4 children have put me in a position where I've had to be accountable. Regardless, there's no getting out of it. You have to man up. You have to level up. That's it. And that's what I'm saying. But as I said, when it's time to complain, I've only got myself to complain to, because I mapped out my own life at the end of the day. Whether it was an accident or not, I mapped out my own life. So
and this works both ways, right? As well, you know, it's also, you said, you know, the partner you're picking. This is a shout. This is honestly a direct talk to the men as well. You know, the girl might look crazy. You know, she might be that kind of fiery energy that you like, something spicy, all good. But I tell you what, this is also the person you're potentially picking. You know, we've all got choices, and you've got to be, I think, in the game of messing around, being a bit irresponsible. Yeah, a child can result from that. You know, and if this is not what you're trying to deal with, have a bit of a think about it. We've all been young, we've all been young, and we all want fun at some point, But I think if you're going to be grown up about it, you've got to be responsible about the type of the partner that you're picking, and it's really important. Don't think you know them. You know, sometimes how they've acted, they've shown you all their cards. You know, don't act surprised.
listen,
don't act surprised.
It's a matter of fact that most of us see the red flags way before, but we choose to ignore them, and that's on us. That's on us, man. Like, I don't think there's one man or woman who's in a bad relationship right now who can say, I didn't see the red flags. I didn't see them literally buzzing off in my face before I went and had a baby with this person. You do. And you know what? You can say you're young. Everyone can say you're young. My thing is, there's people that are still paying for mistakes that they've made when they're younger. So it's only so many times you can say, I was young. You know what I'm saying? I was young. It's the reality that we're all going to make mistakes and think a certain way. But if you're holding in or just singling out, oh, you know, I was young, so that kind of excuses you, it actually don't. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Have you found being a co-parent has impacted having new relationships with women? Because from what I see, and I've always heard this, there is this kind of desire for men to not have children. You know, they want a man that doesn't have a child, for example. And then equally, there's men out there who are like, nah, I don't want a woman who's got a child. In my mind, the logical thing is, common sense is, as people get older, a lot more people will have children, right? So, you know, the pool of people you're going to be picking from, some will have children, right? But it seems to be this kind of lockdown parameter that says, no, he has to not have a child, or she needs to not have a child, right? Has it impacted your relationship with women? And do you rule out, you know, women who have children?
No, the funny thing is, I actually asked that question that other day on my show, but firstly, it doesn't, for me, it doesn't, if a woman's got a child, it doesn't bother me, to be honest with you. Because again, I've got my own, I've been a dad for nearly 14 years, and what's before me is before me. Like I said, it's what I'm then looking at is how you take care of these children. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Are you a respectable mother? How do you carry yourself? And then that you got children of a certain age or whatever else it is, and blah, blah, blah. So that doesn't bother me. Has it impacted my life before? Yeah, it has, majorly, to be honest with you. Like, majorly. Because, again, younger at the time, when you've got a child and you've got this new partner that you've been in a relationship with for X amount of time, my relationships were a couple of years at times, whether they be up or down or rocky, whatever else it is. There was a stage where my son didn't want no woman around me. None at all. He knew already that mummy and daddy was never going to be together, but he ain't going to be cool with this girl that's here. Never. He don't care. She can buy tracksuits, t-shirts, toys, whatever, you name it. Not on it. Because I know that if I become cool with this girl here, mummy's going to have a problem with it and probably stop me from going to see dad. So it's best that I just don't be cool with the girl altogether. Because mummy don't want no girl around her picnic. And you've heard this before. Do you see what I'm saying? The same way, the other way around, vice versa. Man don't want no man around my youth or whatever else it is. Or you've heard it. So it had that impact on my relationship at times. to a point of the other day. It's flipped so far now that my son's like, Dad, you need a girlfriend, man. Like, no, I remember before, like, I didn't want you to have no girl, but I was young. This is how my son's talking to me now, you know. I swear to God. Like, yeah, I was young. I was being a bit selfish or whatever else it is. But now, I feel like you need a girlfriend, man. Like, you're getting older. And maybe you need to have another baby. Like, this is how the man's talking to me, bro. Like, my brethren. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. So, it's flipped. He's very open and whatever else it is to me being in relationships now. Me making decisions on being in relationships now have blatantly changed because I don't have the worry of how is it going to impact my co-parenting situations. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? My son's a lot bigger now or whatever else it is. And he will kind of let me know if he's feeling somebody or not. Do you know what I mean? So I know how I then have to adjust or adapt my situation accordingly. Do you know what I mean? So not so much now, but in the past, it definitely affected me, man.
Would you say he's your sense checker for some of the women? You know, does he give you the? Is he got? Do you have to get the seal of approval? Do you have to get the seal of approval from him before it goes forward? You have to get the seal of approval from him anyway. But
he hasn't been wrong yet, to be honest with you. Mm. Like everybody he was sort of open with, like he was right about them. Obviously, it just didn't work out for me and them. Obviously, but how they treated him and was with him was cool. But there was one person he was like, not having it, Dad. No. Like, if you get with her, I ain't coming around here. Like, it's done. Yeah. Like, and he was right, blood. It's my worst relationship ever. Like, poison. He was so right, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, so, you know what, Skanx, what would co-parenting, obviously, in the ideal world, you would love for your son to grow up, get married, you know, have a happy life, one dog, one cat, maybe, all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? But in the real world, we know this thing, it can happen to anyone. What advice would you give your son if he was ever going through a similar situation to you? What are some of the main things you would tell him to do, how to go about co-parenting?
Talk to me. Talk to me. If I've got any advice, talk to me, because the stress from that co-parenting thing comes from so many different angles. Sometimes it could be the stress of the fact that he may not be financially stable, or they might not be financially stable, but there's a baby in the situation that needs A, B, C, D, and E. By you coming to speak to me, you may get the finances from me, but you can stand on your own 2 feet as a man, and she ain't got to know that it's coming from your dad or whatever else it is. And you can navigate through some of these situations, and it can become less strenuous, as well as you trying to find a way to be able to, do you know what I mean? Because it's when you're trying to find the money to do certain things. Let's just use finance as an example. You're trying to find the money to do certain things, as well as the other little, it can become very hard. So again, opening your mouth and coming to speak to me about these things, I could somewhat navigate you through, I feel like, the majority of these situations. Like I said, I never had the outlet. I can be the outlet for you though.
And I think, you know what, as a father, the way I try to parent my children, I think in the end, that's the ultimate goal for me, you know. It's just my children wanting to come and speak to me. Because that's the only way you can really do your job. You get to when it gets to those crunch time years, you know, when shit can really go left or right, that's the years where your child might come in from school, everything all right? Yeah, good. And these times they've got so much things brewing under the surface, you don't even know. So that's the time. Now, obviously, my kids talk too much, to be honest with you. But like when they get to a certain age, when they get to those teenager years where, as I said, it's crunch time, that's when you really want them to come and open up to you, because I feel like I can do my job then. I can't do my job if your mouth is shut, because if you say there's nothing wrong with you, then okay, cool. I can't get it out of you. If you don't want to speak, you know, I can't force you to speak. But you know, if your child's got things going on and they're not expressing them, then it's an issue.
It's just being an open book though, because again, like I said, as much as we could want our children to be open and expressive towards us, to speak to us about certain things, a lesson that I learned over the past couple of years, I would say, is the fact that my son didn't see me as much as we were tight and we were cool and we were close, but because of how I reacted in certain situations, like I said, my temper being a major thing for me, there were certain things that he probably wanted to come and speak to me about, but because he couldn't see me dealing with it peacefully, he wouldn't come and speak to me. He'd come and speak to his mum about it. So you just have to, again, as much as we want these things or whatever, we have to look at ourselves for a minute from their standpoint and say, "Raw,
would I want to come and speak to you? Yeah. Would I want to come and speak to you myself? Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And that's just it. Like I said, I learned a valuable lesson because, again, what he wanted to speak to me about was cool. There was nothing that I would have been vexed or steamy about. But because of the perception he had of me when I dealt with other situations, made him believe that he couldn't speak to me about those situations. So again, it's just about making sure that we are the person we need to be.
So Skanx, what would your advice be to dads out there, men out there who are going through it right now with their other halves, who feel like they're hitting a brick wall, who feel like they can't get on the same page as their missus? What are some... Give us 2 or 3 pointers, like major pointers that you feel is key to solving some of the conflict.
One of the first things that I would probably say, if I could bullet point 3 points maybe, is like I said, in regards to the communication thing, I think trying to communicate respectfully is one of the most important things. One of the most important things. Communicating honestly and respectfully. Because again, like I said, sometimes we're not seeing eye to eye. People find it hard to keep a level of respect. Do you see what I'm saying, with each other? So trying to communicate respectfully. If that isn't the case in regards to your situation, I would always try to say, find somebody who can mediate in your situation. Whether it be family member, friend, flipping counsellor, or whoever it may be that you need to go and see in order to seek this help, or whatever else it is, in order for you to get the best you can out of co-parenting and your situation as you, or you as a parent, doing the best you can, trying to find other avenues to either just communicate or to be a parent, you know what I mean? So again, mediation, respect, and it's hard to say, bro, and I'm thinking about it and it's making me think, but just always stay with your intentions. If your intentions are to be a great dad and be there for your child or whatever else it is, as bumpy as the road may be at times, stick with it. That's all I can really say. It's hard. There's no advice for dealing with your emotions in regards to wanting to be a good dad. There isn't no golden words that make everything feel better, to be honest with you. But stick by doing that. Try your best to communicate amicably, and if not, mediation will be definitely, those 3 for me is somewhat everything. Like I said, who that mediator is going to be key in regards to how it all pans out. But those are my 3 for me.
Appreciate that, man. I hear that.
Yeah, it's good.
That's very powerful, man. But yes, guys, we've come to another episode of Dads Divulge. Before we go, Skanx, where can people follow you? Where can people see what you're doing? What have you got coming up in the future?
So obviously, award-winning Dirty Debates and all of these things, Listener Choice Podcast and all of these things, 2020-2021. Every Sunday at 9:30 on Instagram Live via @Mr. Durrty, Dirty spelled DURRTY. Like, screenshot the plaque if you need to, people. That's okay. I don't mind. Yeah. Find me on, again, Instagram, Mr. Durrty, on Spotify. If you just Google Mr. Durrty Skanx, Skanx spelled SKANX, you'll find absolutely everything that I'm involved in, the films, the podcast stuff, the music, absolutely everything. So, yeah, man, I'm here.
Oh, I love it, man. Love it. Guys, be sure to check out Durrty Skanx. Stu?
Like, share and subscribe on the page. You know, like, share and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think of the episode. Let us know, topics you want us to come up with. Yeah, thanks for joining.
And on that note, we're out.